everybody. This is Gaynor Meilke from Charisma Inc., and this is Moving the Needle, Digital Transformation in the Accounting Profession. And today I have my co-host, John Higgins, and we are so lucky to be joined by TJ Lewis from Better Every Day. So, John, do you want to say hello, and then you can throw it over to TJ?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and happy to have you on this next episode of Moving the Needle. And we have, as Gaynor mentioned, TJ Lewis is going to tell us all about what he's doing to help firms do just that, move the needle on digital transformation. So, welcome, TJ. We're looking forward to getting into our conversation with you.
Hey, John. Hey, Gaynor. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And you said you're in the studios of Better Every Day, so that's fabulous. You guys have a nice setup there, and I know you're helping firms set up better too. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm a recent addition to the Better Everyday team, but yeah, Better Everyday is a community of accounting firms, and that's really the goal, right? Is to kind of holistically look at the firm, and I kind of bring the technology, AI, innovation side of the puzzle. We've got Darren Root and John Mitchell bringing the firm strategy and sort of the culture and team side as well. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. You can kind of see a little bit of the space here, but the Better
Mhm.
Everyday Studios, where we create a lot of content as well for our community. But yeah, that's my passion is really about leveraging technology and new and innovating ways. And we were chatting before we jumped on here today. I think one of the things that we often see, and I know your podcast is really kind of geared towards this, is that technology is prolific, but if you aren't able to take advantage of it, then it's not necessarily doing anybody any favors. And so that's what I really try to bring to the table is let's look at the technology that we have, and I think AI is a huge enabler, but it's not the only thing, right? I think there's a lot of technology and features and functionality that we're leaving untapped across our software and our tech stack.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
were
I
just
totally agree
saying.
with. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gaynor.
Oh, I was just going to say, TJ was mentioning as well that a lot of firms are really only using 20% of the capability of the tools they already have. So, how do you balance looking outside what you already have with what you've got in-house? Like, how do you even make that decision? Because it's easy to get lured away by shiny objects because it's sometimes difficult to open the box you already have.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, so I've had the privilege of being on an innovation team. I've been in product management for basically the last 10 plus years within the accounting space. And it is easy, right? There is always the new shiny object. And I think it really comes down to, for me, from an innovation standpoint, it always starts with what are you trying to solve for? And it's easy to be lured away by a solution that offers things and pretty new features and stuff that you really don't need. And so I think it's always important to ask the question, what am I really trying to solve for? Is there a specific challenge that you have, whether it's, payroll, bookkeeping, client accounting, advisory, whatever it might be, really identify what the problem is. And then the first place to look is within your current stack, right? What do I currently have that I'm already paying for that might be able to solve my problem? If you get to a point then where it's clear that that solution can't perform the function you need, then you can start looking and you should start looking outside and figure out what does offer the solutions. And that's where things start to get really murky, right? Because as you're looking at new solutions, it's like, okay, well, is that solving for the things that I already have? And I definitely recommend starting with what you already have, what you're comfortable with, and seeing if that will solve it. And if it doesn't, then there's plenty of tools out there, and that's where, I always recommend having somebody on the team, and maybe it's different people depending on the functional area, but have somebody on the team who is paying attention to the new features and functionality within the existing products that you have, because that's often where you're going to find the biggest gains right out of the gate is just to keep paying attention. What's QBO rolling out this week or next week? What's your practice management software doing today that they weren't doing 3 months ago? And instead of wholesale changing your entire software stack, just make sure you're taking advantage of everything that they already offer.
I think a classic example of that is I do a lot of work with Microsoft 365 because I just believe in it. There's so much power in there with the integration of the apps. And so I feel it's the most underutilized software across the accounting profession. And there's a lot of other very good applications out there for sure. But as to your point, TJ, just first of all, look at what you have in front of you and see if you're getting the most out of it, which chances are probably not. And I see this a lot when I'm doing a lot of Microsoft Copilot education,
Mhm.
which is Microsoft's AI. And so it's interesting because when I'm showing it, all of a sudden I get people come up to me and say, wow, I didn't know we could do all these things in 365. Forget about the
Right.
Copilot. They're just getting their eyes open to what they can do with some of the core technology in 365. So that's great advice. That look at what you've got first because there's so many choices. I also talk about how it's just so easy right now to spend money in the wrong places on new tech because you can easily get yourselves overwhelmed and that can be disillusioning
Yeah.
for the people who have to implement it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. The Office 365, I mean, that's an area that I haven't spent near enough time in myself. But, even just beyond the core productivity suite things, you start dipping your toes into Power Automate and Power BI, and it just really opens up. It can be very overwhelming, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you get that sense from folks when you start talking about some of the capabilities. It's like I don't have time to learn, how to effectively use Excel, let alone, jumping into
Right.
Power Automate and all these other things.
Yeah. So, John, from your perspective, like how do firms start to take a bite at the elephant? Like it's especially in something like Office 365, which has so many different components.
Well, I think the first thing they have to do is learn what they even have in front of them. I mean,
Mm,
I do a presentation called 365 Lightning Round just to show them all these different apps, just so they get an idea of what's there and
mm,
what the potential is. And then really they got to come up with a little bit of a plan about, okay, what should we take on first? Because there's some low-hanging fruit apps like the bookings app just to, streamline appointment scheduling and things like that. Just start with the simple stuff first. And I think that in my opinion, every CPA who does client accounting work should be learning Power BI because it's such a powerful tool and you can really do a lot of client advisory services around Power BI. But that's a niche. I mean, you got to make a strategic decision to go down that path. And I'm not just saying, I mean, Microsoft 365 is not the only tool out there, but it just kind of applying that same concept to other tools, like TJ mentioned QBO, right?
mm,
Some of these tools are so hard just to keep up with what they're doing because especially with AI, they're all trying to really, push the envelope and, add all this
mhm,
functionality to their software. It's a full-time job. Like I find that with ChatGPT, it's a full-time job just keeping on with everything that OpenAI is putting out in ChatGPT. And that's, just
Yeah.
one of many, many products. So you got to start
mm.
Yeah.
and just be aware of what's out there.
John, you
So,
mentioned bookings, and one of the things that I think is interesting you just raised there is that, for a long time it was sort of like, oh, it was Calendly, right? So everybody
mm,
sort of Calendly was sort of the new big player that kind of revolutionized, this easy scheduling. And then, Office 365 starts rolling, Microsoft kind of may not always be the first to the table on some of these things, but they're going to incorporate those uh, productive apps, and bookings is certainly
mm,
one of those. And I use Loom a fair bit, and I know that they've got a couple of I can't remember, what is it, Stream? I don't know if you are familiar with the Office 365 tool there, but these things that really do help us. I'm less of an Office 365 person and more of a, Slack and Gmail and Loom. And so I've kind of cobbled together my suite of things. But largely 365 has all of those things kind of in-house. And to your point, it's really just understanding what are what are the capabilities and what do I then need to go outside of the suite for?
Yeah, because you
mhm,
can't do everything, and so you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to make it do things that it's not designed for. So it's trying
Right.
to find that balance, like whether it's Canopy or Carbon or those other types of applications. You got to figure out, okay, now how do I make this work? And there's always going to be some overlap between those like CPA practice specific applications, and that's part of the
Right.
challenge is figuring out where one stops and the other one starts.